What's up, guys? In this video, I'm going to share with you a very personal story about the worst thing that ever happened to me that completely messed up my life. So you might be thinking, what is this mythical thing that I'm talking about? Did I get Natty pregnant or did Rigo run away? And the answer is Lyme disease. When I was 24, I got Lyme disease, which I truly believe is one of the worst diseases that you can get if it goes undiagnosed. This is something that everyone who has chronic Lyme would agree with me on, but something that not a lot of people know about. I think there's a massive, massive epidemic in the US of people who have Lyme disease who don't even know. They just think they're going crazy or they have some other disease. And honestly, I didn't want to make this video for a very long time. It was on my to-do list, but I kept putting it off and putting it off because this is something that's very personal to me. It's kind of hard for me to talk about this stuff without remembering a lot of the feelings. Ultimately, I decided to make this video on the behest of several friends and family members who said that I have an opportunity to raise awareness for a cause that, I think that needs to be raised awareness for. So ultimately, I decided to do a video for this reason, because if this can help even one person who has Lyme disease, then that would be something that I'd be very, very happy with. So let's kind of get into what happened with me. I was healthy all my life. I was just a regular kid. I ate a normal diet. I drank, I partied, I had fun, I traveled, like very normal, very healthy, standard life. And I was living in LA at the time. Me and my girlfriend used to do a lot of hiking, so we go in the Santa Monica mountains, and they used to have these signs like, watch out for ticks that may carry Lyme disease. But I didn't even think about that like until after it happened. I was like, why would I care about a tick, right? Like, I'm a healthy kid. That shit can't touch me. And this started in the summertime, and it was very, very gradual. It was extremely gradual. I just started noticing mild pain in my knees when I would walk around for more than an hour, right? And I was like, okay, whatever. Maybe I need to take some fish oil. Maybe I need to take some turmeric, maybe some Advil, right? Like, whatever, like it's not a big deal. And then I started noticing I just kept getting a little bit of brain fog. Like, my mind was just working a little slower, and my mood was a little worse. I was like a little bit more bummed out. But I was like, okay, whatever. Like, I can get through this, right? I'm sure it'll go away. And every few weeks, I would just get a little bit worse and a little bit worse. So instead of kicking in after an hour, it would kick in after 40 minutes. Then it would kick in after 30 minutes. Then it would kick in after 20 minutes, right? And all the symptoms I had just kept getting worse and worse and worse. So I found myself spending more and more time in bed. Instead of spending, 8 hours in bed, I would spend 10 hours in bed, then 12 hours, then 13 hours, right? You kind of see the pattern. This was very slow and gradual. It didn't happen all of a sudden. So I would say this happened in July. So maybe around September time, I started really looking into this, because I'm like, okay, this is not going away, it's just getting worse. So I started going to all the top doctors in Los Angeles. I got MRIs on my knees because I thought it was first an orthopedic problem, right? I went to rheumatologists. I went to every type of doctor, like literally every type of doctor. Between July and December, I must have been to, I want to say, at least 40 or 50 doctors. Like, because I was spending all my days just going to doctors because I knew that I had to figure out what the fuck this is. The problem is none of the doctors knew. None of them. Some of them thought it was this, some of them thought it was that. A lot of them thought it was just in my head, because on paper, I was extremely healthy, and I was coming in and I was complaining of all these issues, and they're like, this is just another kid who's just making shit up, right? Who just wants a sob story. That was the implication. A lot of them said that indirectly, and some of them even said it directly. They're like, are you sure? Maybe you should try an SSRI. I'm like, SSRI? I can barely walk. And this kept getting worse and worse and worse. By December, it was so bad that I had to have my mom come out and help take care of me, because I was in so much pain with my knees and my shoulders that I literally couldn't cook. I couldn't walk. I was spending all day in bed. And I was honestly extremely scared. It was so fucking scary, because you have this thing that's destroying your life and no one knows what it is, and most people don't even believe you. I think the only person that truly believed that there was something actually going on is my mom. Even my dad didn't really believe me, because he's like, okay, well, all the doctors say you're healthy, so you must be healthy, right? Like, what the fuck is the deal? And I just kept going downhill and downhill and downhill, and no one could help me. No one could help me, and I couldn't even take care of myself. I literally couldn't do anything. I was basically becoming a paraplegic day by day. I was just spending all day laying in bed, maybe get up for 5 minutes to take a quick walk. My knees would hurt so bad, I have to lay in bed for another few hours, right? And my story is very typical of people who have Lyme disease. This is not an unusual story. Actually, it's probably one of the more mild ones as far from the stuff I heard. So it kept getting worse and worse and worse, and I got really lucky. In January, a friend of a friend of a friend recommended this integrated medicine doctor, and I just got really lucky, because the doctor, when he heard my symptoms, he's like, you know what? Let's check you for Lyme disease. And I might be thinking, why did no one check you for Lyme disease beforehand? The issue is that no one knows about Lyme disease. Now it's becoming more common, especially since Joe Rogan talked about it on his podcast, but no one really even knew to look for that, right? And I remember I had a big board of things that I thought it could be. I had gout, arthritis, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, is it that? And at the very bottom of the list was Lyme disease. So I was aware of it. I just didn't think it was likely because, again, I didn't know much about it. I never recalled being bit by a tick. So I was like, can't be Lyme disease. But I remember clearly one day I saw an infectious disease specialist and I was like, hey, do you think this could be Lyme disease? And this guy, who's like one of the top experts in infectious disease, looked me in the eye and said, there is no way this is Lyme disease. You do not have Lyme disease, right? Funny, shows you how much doctors know. So what happened was I got really lucky around January. I saw this doctor, he looked at my symptoms, he's like, you know what? Let's check you for Lyme disease. I was like, oh man, like we don't need to. Like I have this infectious disease doctor telling me, it's not that. He's like, no. He's like, I've seen Lyme disease. He's like, well, let's check you for that. And then 2 weeks later, the test came out positive. I had Lyme disease. That was one of the most relieved I've ever been. That was such a feeling of massive relief because finally, it was definitive proof that I wasn't going crazy. It was definitive proof that this was not in my head. And this meant hope, because if this is an official disease, that means there's people who know how to treat it. That means there's hope, right? And that was such a weight off my shoulders. Like I think I might have cried for like half an hour because I was just so relieved. Like all these crazy emotions that have been bottling up are finally like, yes, like there's hope. There's something to it. So I started very, very aggressively treating Lyme disease. I mean, we're talking insane. I fully changed my diet to a clean paleo diet, completely cut off anything and everything, started doing multiple antibiotics, herbs, supplements. I really got into also ozone therapy. So, and I literally, to the point where I took it, I actually had a doctor train me in how to do ozone therapy, and I was doing ozone therapy on myself, right? Which is something that you're really not supposed to do, but I was like at a point I was so desperate. Like I don't care if I fucking kill myself because I'm already basically dead, right? That's how desperate I was. And I slowly got better. It wasn't like a miracle. It wasn't like, oh, I just started doing the antibiotics, I get better. It took a solid year, 2 years for me to get better, and kind of like how I was getting sick slowly, it was very much like that. And there was a lot of ups and downs, right? But I started feeling better. And I would say when I was 27, I more or less had my life back. Again, I was on a very strict diet. I couldn't miss sleep or anything like that. I had to keep my immune system up, but I was more or less living a normal life. Unfortunately, I relapsed. And I relapsed twice in my life. When around 27, I was feeling good. I got off antibiotics. Half a year later, I relapsed. And it started this time with neck. Just this gradual pain in my neck that kept getting worse and worse and worse. And honestly, the second time around, it was even worse. The second time around, when I was at my worst, I was very suicidal. I mean, I've never seriously thought about, killing myself, but I was almost there. I mean, it was so bad that all I did was lay in bed and again have panic attacks. Like when you have Lyme disease and it's like really severe, I mean, it's like you're constantly on the verge of a panic attack. Like you're just constantly basically it's like a panic attack that never ends, combined with a lot of pain, combined with brain fog, combined with fatigue, combined with all kinds of other issues, right? It's really fucking bad. And yeah, I thought that, the second time I tried all the same treatments I did the first time, they didn't really work. They didn't really help me. I had to do a completely different kind of treatment, different herbs and antibiotics and stuff like that, which helped me get better the second time. I also relapsed one more time, and that was 2 years ago. I was feeling better after the second time. 2 years ago, I relapsed again. And again, the second time I did not get off antibiotics. I've been on antibiotics continuously for the last 6 years of my life. 5 years, I believe. So imagine that, taking antibiotics every single day for 5 years, because if I get off antibiotics, I'm gonna relapse again, even worse. But this time, I'm doing things a little bit differently. I'm following a very strict treatment plan. And again, I was doing all that stuff the first time, but hopefully this time it will be better. And I have hope and faith that it will be. But again, the point of this video is to really raise awareness for what I think is one of the biggest travesties in modern medicine. I think this goes so undiagnosed, and I think there's millions of people in the US who have Lyme disease and don't even know. And I think they're being ignored by their doctors. They're being told that they're crazy. They're being told all this shit. And what they really need to do is take some doxycycline. They really need to take some herbs. They really need to start treating the bacterial infections going on in their body and not take a bunch of antidepressants. I truly believe that Lyme disease is responsible for a lot of the crazy shit that we see happening. I think, well, I don't want to get into too controversial, but a lot of the really crazy incidents that we have happen, that's been a phenomenon for the last 10 years, I think is at least partially a result of people having undiagnosed Lyme disease. And to anyone who has Lyme disease, my heart is with you. Like, this is something I personally can relate to. This is something that completely destroyed my life. This is something that almost killed me, potentially several times. So this is, I think, one of the worst things. I think it needs awareness. And I think there needs to be more people who actually give a shit about this kind of stuff. What we saw with COVID, we saw the world like literally transform and start doing all this stuff to, help protect people from COVID and all that stuff. However you feel about that, like, the world clearly responded. But Lyme disease has been going on for way longer. It's way worse in my opinion. I've had both. Trust me, I've had both. Lyme disease is, in my opinion, 1,000 times worse, and no one seems to give a fuck about it except for the people who have it and a handful of doctors in the US, right? And that's a fucking shame. So hopefully this video can change that. Hopefully it can raise awareness, and hopefully this will be the start of a change where the world actually starts giving a shit about Lyme disease and the people who have Lyme disease, and they can start getting treatment and they can get better. All right, hopefully you guys found this video valuable. I know this is radically different than the kind of content you're used to seeing on this channel. I promise we're gonna go back to the text advice and all that stuff. This is not gonna become some kind of serious channel, but this is a cause that's very dear to my heart, and if I can have some influence and raise awareness, that's something I'm gonna be very, very happy with. So if you have a friend or family member who's suffering with some weird disease that they can't diagnose, or they know that they have Lyme disease, send them this video. Hopefully it'll give them hope and motivation. I can truly tell you there is hope. I haven't figured it out yet. I can't tell you what's the best treatment or anything like that because I don't have the answer to that, right? I'm still very much actively treating it. But what I can tell you is I'm not nearly as bad as I was 2 years ago when I literally couldn't get out of bed. I live a normal life now. I function. Yes, I have to be super careful. Yes, I have to take massive amounts of antibiotics. Yes, I have to eat really clean, but at least I get to have a normal life, which is something that a lot of people who have Lyme disease don't get to do. So I do consider myself very fortunate for that. Thank you guys for watching, and until next time.